everyone. Good morning. Last week of the first half of the year. It's over, or it's about to be over. So this morning, Texas, let's start with shout outs and gratitude for a minute and then jump in directly to our topic. So you go to your reactions, you click your button if you got something to shout out. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to shout out, got my list here, and it was Jaime in Houston. He did a thing yesterday. He got his broker's license. And that worked out really well. You know how it is when you take a test, you think you bombed it, and he did not bomb it. He passed. So that was very exciting. Congratulations, Jaime. That is excellent news for all of us, and especially for your people in Houston. Jaime, calling on you. I see your hand up.
Yeah, well, thank you for that shout out. And I want to give some people on our Houston team a shout out as well. So Esther Gomez and Gabby on our team had like a little domino effect going on in the neighborhood where they took a listing and then door knocked around the listing. And then somebody that they door knocked went to the open house. So then we had two listings right next door to each other. So now we have two pendings right next to each other as well. And they both were bought by the same buyer, 1031 exchange, closing in like 6 days. So it's, yeah. Now I said, go door knock some more. And then the next shout out is for Nikki Huber on our team. It was her first or second week last week, and she door knocked 1,000 doors. And had a great conversation with the HOA president of one neighborhood. So I think she hit a home run there.
Door knocked how many doors in a week?
1,000 in the Texas cold weather.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So
that'll do it.
That's grit.
Okay. I love it. Man, that's a good one. All right. That is awesome. Hey, Nikki, wherever you are, great job, girl. It's not hard to do 1,000. I mean, it is hard to do 1,000 dials. It's really hard to do 1,000 door knocks in a week. So especially in the Texas heat, the Texas cool weather that we have around here. Awesome. Well, cool. All right. Well, I'm going to look for my friend Jay. And my friend Jay, if you guys don't know Jay, you might know him because he does a lot of place training. So when you see his name pop up for place trainings, I jump on there. He's a great trainer. But above that, he's just a great friend as well. They do a lot of business in the Charlotte area. So think about him as far as Charlotte referrals. The nice thing about Jay is he went through the last shift, didn't you?
I did. We're old school. We're OGs.
Yeah, the real old school when you've gone through a shift. So you put together kind of a little playbook is kind of what I think about it as of, all right, well, this is all great and dandy. It's nice that we went through the shift. What do we do when we're shifting with sellers? So I'm going to give you privileges to take it away. And what I'm encouraging my people as you get your screen up and all of that, I want you to take a sheet of paper out. And some of this you may have already started doing. The goal is what haven't you already done? Check it off the list and add it to your list. So Jay, have at it, buddy.
Yeah, Adelina, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite. Guys, I think the biggest thing that we learned in the last shifted market is working with sellers looks different than it has looked in the last, 12 years, 10 years, 8 years anyway. Certainly the last 6 months, right? When everything's being sold sight unseen in most markets and you've got 14 offers and it's like you go to a listing appointment and it just goes, all right, so throw a dart. What price we want to do, right? What makes the most sense for you? Like, what do we want to try to do? It's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to talk about some things today, working with sellers in a shifted market. And we've got 7 maxims for pricing in a shifted market. I'm going to go through these pretty quick because this is on recording, and Adelina, you can have a slide deck if you want it for everybody as well. So seven maxims for shifting for pricing in a shifted market. Maxim number 1, folks, is be a student of the market, know your numbers, right? So what does this mean to you? Well, this means showing up with probably a little bit more in your hands than here's what the one sold down the street for, right? Like it's actually going into to MLS and pulling some actual data looking at days on market, looking at price per square foot, looking at what they're going for in relationship, sale price to list price percentages, things like that. But it's also going into showing time, right? Do you guys have access to that? Right? Showing data. Cool. So going into showing time, and we're pulling data, like showing data in like the zip code or even the neighborhood, if it's big enough and it registers, and showing people what the showing traffic was 90 days ago, what it was 60 days ago, and what it's been the last 30 days. And guys, you can see on the bottom of the report on the right side, it'll say showings per listing. You'll see significant change in the last 90 days. Showing sellers, this is what the market looks like right now versus what it did look like, where you had all kinds of people fighting over this house 90 days ago to now we've got a few fighting over every house. It's a big difference in the way you price a home, right? So knowing the numbers and being a student of the market, being able to have an economics conversation with them. Number 2, focus your market analysis on actives and pendings. Guys, solds may be already out of date. Let me give you a little update on some things. When you see a sold price, that house was sold a month or 2 ago, right? That's number 1. Number 2 is that might not necessarily be where the market was. What I mean by that is, okay, so if there were multiple offers on a property 60 days ago or 45 days ago or 30 days ago, that's great. But only one of them was willing to pay that price, right? And it may have been that there was a cluster that were 20,000 lower. Well, that's where the market was. And you don't know that because you weren't the listing agent. You don't have access to that data. So you have to be careful with those sold prices. They may already be out of date. The market might have already crested in that area. We had a house that we sold, I believe about 90 days ago, maybe 60 days ago. We closed it at $700,000. It was a relocation. And that client actually, their relocation terminated and they didn't come to Charlotte, right? So they were the buyer of our listing. Well, that house is on the market right now, $15,000 less, and it's sitting. And that's an interesting conversation to have with people. It's a really good example of what we're talking about here, where solds may already be out of date. Maxim number 3, be the student of property. Guys, preview them. Previews matter right now. Even for us old school agents, even for the OGs, the ones that go, I already know what houses look like. I have a pretty good understanding, but here's what we got to do. And Adelina, you can back me up on this back from when the last shift happens. We have to understand what houses are selling and why. And more importantly, we have to understand what buyers are saying no to. So why homes aren't selling right now? Look for commonalities, right? It might be, do they have pools? Do they have masters on the main floor? Like, why are these homes not selling? Is it just condition, or are there other things to it? Wonky floor plans might have trouble selling in the near future, right? Where, hey, look, I'm just happy to have a house 6 months ago. Well, now buyers are a little more discriminating. Maxim number 4, keep your presentation as current as possible and let ongoing research do the talking, right? So everybody uses the seller guide for place, and that's awesome. And you still need to bring local data. So are you updating that with statistics? Because it's one thing to be like, here's what the data looks like. Here's what interest rates look like this month. And here's what buying power looks like. So your house 90 days ago, the interest rate would have been this and the payment would have been this. Well, this month, the interest rate is this and the payment would be this. Do you see how the buying power has been hurt and therefore buyers are not as willing to push the prices? Right? It's a great way to give them some perspective on how the other party in the transaction is feeling. Maxim number 5, pre-qualify for motivation. Guys, sellers who need to sell most often, right? I'm not saying it should be a red flag for you, but it should be a yellow flag. If you start qualifying them and you ask them, well, where are they going? Well, we're not sure yet. Like, that should be a pause, right? Or maybe you ask the question, well, if your home didn't sell, would that present any problems for you? And they go, no. Okay, that time out. Like, let's talk about this, right? If they say, if I don't get my price, I just wouldn't sell. Okay, let's make sure that price is really reasonable then, because they're the ones that go, well, we'll just take it off the market, right? Like, we have to make sure that these people are motivated. Otherwise, you're going to get into situations where it's going to feel frustrating and long and lose. They're going to feel like they're losing, and then you're going to feel like you're losing too. Maxim number 6, guys, price ahead of the market to avoid chasing it. There's a really great video on YouTube by Jay Papasan called Why Some Homes Sell and Others Don't. It's like 3 minutes, and it's a very good illustration. And if you can draw this out for people, they really understand it. But what it looks like is if you don't get ahead of the market, guys, you end up chasing the market. And in some cases, you won't be able to chase it fast enough. If we have a really hard shift and prices start dropping, and what happens is we've already priced it above the market, they're not willing to take that huge price reduction to get back in front of things. And so pricing it ahead of the market to avoid chasing it is a big deal. Number 7, always secure price reductions in advance and avoid falling behind the market. So we had some conversation around this week when I was on the place training on Tuesday. Ryan Gregg from Bellingham actually brought this up, and he said, I struggle with believing in the price and then doing a price reduction in advance ahead of time, right? So like I'm at the listing appointment. It doesn't sound very convincing if I'm trying to get them to do a price reduction ahead of time. I said, that's a great observation. Me personally, I wouldn't say, hey, if we don't sell in 14 days, we're going to do a price reduction to this number. But what I would do is say, hey, if we make it through 2 weekends, or if we make it 2 weeks, or whatever that number is that feels right in your market, and we don't have an offer or an agreeable contract by that date, we're going to talk about a price adjustment, right? So I think in a true falling market where you can say, hey, for the last 6 months, we've been, last time we were 1% a month in some cases, right? We would actually say if we don't have a contract by this month, by this date, we're going to do this price reduction. I don't think we're in that market yet. And I would hesitate to say, let's put a number on it. But to say, hey, if we don't have a contract, we're going to have a conversation, I think is smart. All right. So those are the 7 maxims for pricing in a shifting market. Do you guys have any quick feedback on that? Any ahas so far?
Jay, I just want to say that I can tell that this is very proactive, right? I think that there are a lot of agents who are reactive in a market like this, and this is us getting out in front of it, being the expert, and I just really love it. Thanks for sharing this, man.
Yeah, Casey, good feedback, man. The fastest way to win in this market is to act like you know what you're doing, right? And to explain that in a different way is if you're being proactive, they're constantly looking to you and saying, all right, you know what you're talking about. And I'm comfortable listening to your advice. If they're having to bring things up to you, they're losing confidence in you every time they have to do that. Valencia.
Hey, Jay, I really like that you said you don't like the souls are already out of date. So you're just looking at pending and what's currently under contract. So you don't have to know it all. You just have to be one step ahead of your sellers. So that way they do come to you as their resource.
Great feedback. I think the days of pushing the market are gone. Don't push the market. If the market pushes the price up, then that's awesome. That's icing. But we can't plan on that right now. Jaime?
Hey, Jay, thank you for this. I like what you said about we all use the place seller experience presentation. And we have to go in there with the data. There's been so many agents over the last 18 months that have stopped doing open houses. They've stopped. It's almost as if sellers would think anybody could sell their house, and which was true, for a few months, right? It's like, but it came down to 40 offers and explaining. I think now more than ever, we show up with that same level of intensity as if we were competing against, 20 agents to sell a house when the inventory was low. And that's how we're going to gain the massive market share, by not letting up and stepping on the gas.
It's interesting you said that. Statistically, sellers only talk to one agent, right? The majority of sellers only talk to one agent. It's the agent that they're in communication with right now. But I think if you if you have the perspective of I'm competing for every listing, I'm either competing with the other agent that they might be talking to, or I'm competing with their expectations from what the market was 90 days ago or 6 months ago. I think you go into it with a different purpose and have more success. Right? All right. I'm going to jump back into the slide deck real quick. Maybe if I can pull it up. There we go. Guys, the second half of this is going to focus on sellers. We list sellers, not houses. Here's what I mean by that. When you talk about what sells a home and what factors sell a home, throw out some factors that sell a home.
Marketing.
Okay, marketing. What else?
How it shows.
So we'll call that condition, right? Marketing, condition. What else?
Location.
Okay, location. What else?
Price.
Price. Love it. What else?
Condition.
Okay, yep, we got condition, marketing, price.
Inventory.
Inventory. All right. What else?
Upgrades.
Upgrades. Okay. That kind of falls under condition, but we'll call it. All right. Upgrades. What else?
Motivation.
Motivation. I love it. All right. Here's the deal, guys. Most people will tell you there's two factors that sell a house: price and condition. Right? In fact, when you listen to Jay Papasan's video that I was telling you earlier, he specifically mentions price and condition, right? As those are the only two things that sell a house. Well, they are in terms of the property, right? Either it's condition, meaning we can fix it, or it's price, meaning if we can't fix it, we're going to have to reprice it. There's two things I want to encourage you guys about price and condition. Number one, you can outprice condition. We can drop the price enough to where a house in terrible condition will sell. Agreed? Yeah. But we can't fix the condition enough if the house is very poorly priced. Right? It can matter, but it can't matter enough. Price is the number one thing. Condition is a second. But I'm going to flip the script on this and say the third thing, guys, is sellers. Right? Somebody mentioned motivation, but guys, sellers are the number one thing. Right? So we've got price and condition. But if you guys, the sellers, they decide on the price. They decide on the condition. They decide whether the house is available for showings or not. In most cases, they decide the terms of the contract that they're agreeable to. And they choose the realtor. Guys, sellers are the wild card here. Right? If you've got a great seller, chances are everything else is going to fall in line. If you've got a terrible seller, good luck. It's going to be a challenge. And it's going to be one of the most frustrating things you've done in your entire career, right? It can be a great house. And if the seller's unrealistic or they're hard to work with, it's going to be a less fun experience than it should be for them and for you. Right? So here's 4 factors when we're evaluating sellers and determining whether or not we want to work with them, whether or not they're going to be a good seller. Right? Number 1, what are their expectations? Are they realistic, or can you coach them to realistic? Right? Because I think one of the things that happens right now is there's a lot of sellers that aren't realistic, but some of them are open-minded and will listen to you. And they'll look at the data and go, okay, this makes sense. And some of them are going to be hung up on what their neighbor got 6 months ago, or what they think their neighbor got 6 months ago. Right? Number 2 is motivation. How motivated is the seller to sell? Do they have a gap, a difference between where they are and where they want to be in a timetable for making that happen? Right? If they can articulate, hey, I want to be in Salt Lake City by the end of the year. Okay, cool. I've got a pretty good idea what their motivation is. If one of them's been transferred, like in Charlotte's pretty transient. I know some of the Texas cities are as well, because companies are moving in and out and all that kind of stuff. And you go, all right, so somebody's been transferred. The husband and the wife may be separate. Guys, there's extreme motivation in a lot of places for them to get back in the same household and get life back to normal. That's a great motivator. But if you've got someone who's going, I mean, if we sell this house, we're going to move to a different house in the neighborhood. And if it sells, it sells. If we get our price, that's great. And if we don't, that's fine too. Guys, everything has to line up perfectly for them to do what they're trying to do. There's not a huge gap there. right? The third is cooperation. Are they cooperative and coachable? Does it feel like you're on the same team and working together, or are they adversarial and uncooperative? If you go through the house and you're making suggestions on what needs to be done to get top dollar for this house, because that's what their expectation is, and they're saying, yeah, we're just not willing to do new flooring. Yeah, we're not willing to paint. Yeah, we're not, like, you gotta question their cooperation, and are they committed to you as much as you're going to commit to them, right? If you've been in this business long enough, you'll have listings where you've spent all the money and all the energy and all the time, and the seller hasn't lifted a finger. And that doesn't make for a great relationship in a lot of cases. And the fourth is communication. Is the seller honest and open in their communication with you? Are they available? Are they readily available to respond to you? Or do you have to go hunt them down anytime you need a conversation, right? And they say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your text, or I didn't see your call, and it was like 3 days ago, right? Are they unavailable? Are they closed off in communication? Did they have a hidden agenda that you're detecting, right? Like, trust your instincts on some of this stuff, especially if you have enough conversation. And that's why qualifying them, using that seller lead sheet, and really finding out the answers to the test before you go on the appointment is so important and impactful in this market. Guys, all of us were doing listing appointments 6 months ago where someone calls and says, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house and I'd like you to come visit. And you go, okay, cool. And I'll be there in 5 minutes. And, I pull a quick list of what's sold in the neighborhood and go, how high do you want to go? This is not that market, y'all. We have to prepare for these listings differently. We have to prepare for the sellers differently. We have to understand where their mindset is so that we can go in and use our data and our influence in the market and help them understand what needs to be done now, not what needed to be done 6 months ago. So, guys, I ran through this pretty quick because I wanted to have a little bit of time for some conversation. What questions, what concerns, what ahas do you guys have?
I can get the party started real quick. One of the questions that came up was, would you, and I know all of our markets are different, but you've had experience around this before. Would you be pricing homes slightly under to try to get multiple offers, or would you price around market value where you expect it to sell? What do you see as tactics that will work, have worked in the past in a changing market, or what's backfired? Any feedback on that you have?
I think that's a loaded question, right? So number one, the seller is going to decide, right? We're going to agree on a pricing strategy. Some people have a little bit different tolerance for things than others, right? Like, we had a client literally just ask us, should we price it at $1 and let the market take care of it? I'm like, okay, I think that's a little extreme, right? I think 6 months ago, that would have been a fun experiment. I don't know that I'd want to try it right now. So I think the market dynamics matter, right? Are you in an area that's really hot, or are you in an area that's cooling off a little bit? There's still areas of Charlotte that are like, you put something on and it's insane, but there's also areas where you put something on and go, okay, what, like, I'm crossing my fingers here. Like, what is this going to really look like? So I think you have to have that conversation with the seller and say, look, I mean, right now we're kind of encouraging them to price it where the market is to slightly under where the market is. And if the market takes it up from there, then that's icing. And if you can help them understand that and they're agreeable on that, I think that's a win for both of you. I think where it gets really challenging is when you start saying, hey, look, every time a new house comes on the market, it's $20,000 or $25,000 higher. And so we're going to take it up from here. Guys, remember, there's only one person that paid that price last time. And it, the days of 30 offers on a property they're not in Charlotte anymore, right? So when you start saying, there were 3 or 4 offers that were at this price and somebody said, I'm done here, I'm taking this thing off the market. And that's where the challenge comes in of looking at sold comps.
It's a really good script, by the way, especially in a shifting market. Would you look at absorption rates at all? Like, okay, there's
I think
a month in this area or whatever.
Yeah, so we haven't looked at absorption rates yet, but I don't think we're far from having to look at absorption rates. And so for those of you guys that don't know absorption rates, if there's 3 houses in the neighborhood that are for sale and there's 9 houses that have sold over the last 6 months, well, that's an average of 1.5 houses per month that have sold. So you've got 2 months worth of houses on the market right now, right? It's for those of you that have been in retail, it's like shelf life. How many months will it take us to sell the active homes that are on the market at the current rate? And I think that's something that I think is going to come back pretty quick, Adelina. I think you're on the right track with that too. I don't know that we're there yet because we haven't seen enough inventory where it makes sense to actually show that, but I don't think we're far from it.
Any other questions? Any other ahas? We've got him for 3 more minutes and then he's out of here. Listen.
I was gonna say, yeah, I really like that you said that the sellers are the one that sells the house, not the home. I started using something similar with people of just being like, my motivation is going to match yours. Like, do you want convenience or do you want the highest price? So I like that you said it that way, because I'm going to tell them, I'm like, it's up to you how this goes. I can help you reach your goals. These are not my goals. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And Elizabeth, your haircut looks amazing. Gotta always keep it fresh, people. Changing market, keep it fresh. Like if you need a little boost of confidence, that's one way to get it. Let's go. Because you're about to have to be confident in this market.
Well, and I'll just say one more thing too. For those of you guys that are newer or brand new agents, even being around the people that you're around on these calls and in your offices and on your teams and with Place in general, the conversations are so much more high level that you guys need to have confidence to go in and say, hey, look, I know what I'm talking about, right? Get with some of the senior agents on your team and go through the comps, like present it to them, and then go on the listing appointment and kick it in the teeth, man, because you know you're better than 99% of these agents out there, even if you're brand new, just by being in this room.
I love that. There's probably a quote on affiliation that I can see it in my mind, but I can't think what it sounds or what it is. But like affiliation matters, guys.
Yeah.
Like who you surround yourself with more than, I mean, in a hot market, everybody's a hero. Congratulations. We were all heroes. Amazing. In a shifting market, like who you're around with really matters. It really matters. I love that. Jay.
And don't be that agent that all of a sudden has 6 or 7 listings sitting in the same neighborhood, because you'll get branded faster that way than you were building that business.
Yeah. One of the questions that will start coming up, your sellers in the next 90 days will start asking your experience with the last listing and how long your listings are currently sitting. So you definitely just don't want to build that resume.
Right.
Good point. Good point. When you see Jay's name pop up in Place trainings, he's really good about bullet point playbooks, right? Stuff you can take action on today. Jay, will you pop your contact information for Charlotte referrals in the chat box? What I would do every time we have a guest, I would take my phone and I would add them and I would say Jay White Charlotte. And then every time you need a referral, it's so easy. You don't even have to remember his name. You just put in Charlotte. Makes it real easy. Or North Carolina. And then he'll refer you to whoever you need in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, and so Charlotte is on the South Carolina line. So if you get North or South Carolina, give us a shout. If it's not us, we can point you to the right direction.
I love that. Appreciate you so much. Jay does his one thing really well. Jay's one thing is adding talent to his company. And he has an appointment this morning, like top of the hour. So we appreciate him sharing with us this morning. And Jay, thank you so much. You are free to go. I'll send you the recording. And for all of the rest of our Texas people next week, I want to let you know that we've got, we did our leadership series in May with Laura, which was really fun. And we got to know Laura. And next week we've got Jordan. We get to learn all about Jordan. Now, if you're on Jordan's team, if you're partner with Jordan, you probably know her pretty well. You might learn a thing or two. The rest of us don't know Jordan really well, other than she's a really awesome presenter and we love her energy. And we want to know where she came from, how she got to be who she is, because who we are today, like, that's great. And we probably see each other's highlight reels on Instagram and Facebook. And I'd love to see where she came from, how she became the Jordan that she is today. Because success is never overnight. Success is something that's built over time. So excited to have that conversation with Jordan. Hope it inspires us on our journeys. And I hope this morning was good. I will send out the slide deck as soon as Jay sends it to me. And then they just go into it, like the recording goes into our playlist on YouTube. Super simple. Have a good rest of your morning, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.